story about diplomacy. It is a story about a state that treats the world like a supermarket with no loyalty program. Most nations seek protection under an umbrella. They pick a side, they sign the treaty, and they pay the price. India does not. New Delhi has perfected a concept called multi-alignment. It is the ultimate geopolitical arbitrage. Imagine a country that buys Russian S-400 missile systems while building state-of-the-art US jet engines under license. A country that scraps retaliatory tariffs on American apples and walnuts just to secure a front-row seat in the global semiconductor race. India is not the Switzerland of the East. Switzerland stays out. India gets involved in everything to extract the highest possible price. It is a system built on a paradox: trading with enemies, allying with competitors. But how do you maintain this balance without being crushed? To understand the machine, we have to look at the math of survival and the ghost of a bankrupt past. After 1947, Nehru chose non-alignment. Back then, it was a moral stance. Today, that morality is dead. It has been replaced by cold, transactional realism. The turning point was not a choice, it was a collapse. In 1991, India was nearly bankrupt. It had enough foreign exchange to pay for maybe 2 weeks of imports. The system had to open up or die. It learned one definitive lesson: dependency is the ultimate weakness. So India began a 30-year project to diversify its masters. For decades, the Soviet Union was the primary hardware provider. Over 60% of India's military gear is still Russian. It's the legacy of the 1971 Friendship Treaty. But the 2008 civil nuclear deal with Washington changed the variables. India became a partner without an alliance. It gained the benefits of a Western ally without the obligation to fight Western wars. The goal was never to join the West. The goal was to build enough leverage so the West would fund India's rise. New Delhi understood that a market of 1.4 billion people isn't just a country, it's a gravity well. In June 2020, the geopolitical landscape of Asia was permanently disfigured. High in the desolate peaks of the Galwan Valley, the world's two most populous nations engaged in a primitive, brutal confrontation. No bullets were fired, due to a long-standing protocol, but the hand-to-hand combat with spiked clubs left dozens dead. For New Delhi, this wasn't just a border skirmish. It was the death of an illusion. The long-held belief that economic interdependence could pacify Beijing's territorial hunger evaporated in a single afternoon. New Delhi realized the old balance was dead. China was no longer just a difficult neighbor, it was a systemic threat. But here is where India's multi-alignment machine showed its clinical efficiency. Most nations, when threatened by a neighbor, would run straight into the arms of the West. India did the opposite. It used the 2022 global energy crisis to finance its own defiance. While Washington and Brussels implemented price caps and moral crusades against Russian energy, India saw a structural opportunity. Data from S&P Global and Vortexa confirms that India transformed itself into the world's central laundromat for Russian crude. The mechanism is as cynical as it is brilliant. India imports record amounts of discounted Urals-grade crude, often at $20 to $30 below market price. This oil flows into the massive private refineries in Jamnagar and Vadanar. Once refined, the molecular origin of the oil is legally transformed. It becomes Indian diesel and jet fuel. This Indian-labeled fuel is then sold back to the very European nations that sanctioned the raw material in the first place. Europe gets the energy it needs to keep its lights on, and India pockets the massive refining margin. By controlling this middle segment of the supply chain, India is literally utilizing the energy crisis of the West to finance its own multi-billion-dollar infrastructure boom. Critics call it war profiteering and opportunism. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar calls it a duty to the Indian consumer. In the world of multi-alignment, morality is a luxury. Strategic autonomy is the only currency that matters. This is where the machine becomes visible to global boardrooms. India does not just trade, it conducts economic warfare via its tariff structures. To understand how India functions, you have to look at the apple and engine swap of 2023. In June 2023, New Delhi abruptly scrapped retaliatory tariffs on American apples, chickpeas, and walnuts. To a casual observer, it looked like a minor agricultural concession. But in the world of high-stakes arbitrage, it was a tactical sacrifice. In exchange for lowering the price of Washington's walnuts, India secured the GE F-414 jet engine deal. For the first time in history, the United States agreed to transfer core jet engine technology, including hot section manufacturing, to a nation that is not a formal treaty ally. India used a low-tech commodity to buy high-tech sovereignty, But the real heart of the machine is the PLI scheme, or production-linked incentives. To the world's CEOs, this is the most powerful buy-in mechanism on the planet. PLI is not a traditional subsidy. It is a performance-based cashback system. India has committed over $24 billion across 14 strategic sectors, from semiconductors and high-capacity batteries to pharmaceuticals and electronics. The logic is simple. India tells global corporations like Apple, Samsung, and Foxconn, don't just sell to our 1.4 billion people. If you want to avoid our massive import duties, you must build here. And if you meet specific production targets, we will pay you back a percentage of your incremental sales. This is how they captured Apple. Within years, 25% of all iPhones globally will be manufactured in Indian plants. India isn't just joining the global supply chain, it is forcibly relocating the center of gravity from China to the subcontinent, using its own market size as a hostage. However, the most sophisticated gear in this machine is the Sudarshan Chakra protocol. In February 2026, during a high-profile visit to Israel, India finalized a defense pact that seems technically impossible. They are building a hybrid military architecture. India is integrating Russian S-400 missile batteries with Israeli iron beam sensors and American Aegis data links. Normally, these systems are allergic to each other. The US fears Russian backdoors, Russia fears Western espionage, but India is building its own middleware software to force these systems to talk. Washington accepts this technological heresy because the Pentagon's annual reports are crystal clear. India is the only power with the geographic mass and the military will to physically pin down the Chinese Navy in the Indian Ocean. India is the gatekeeper of the Malacca Strait. To keep that gatekeeper strong, the West is willing to overlook India's Russian hardware and its transactional soul. India is no longer picking a side. It is building a world where everyone else has to pick India. By 2026, the machine is reshaping the globe. New Delhi is spearheading the IMEC, the structural bypass for the Suez Canal. It links Mumbai to Dubai, Haifa, and Piraeus, turning India into the node of a new Western trade spine. But geography is a zero-sum game. To counter China's string of pearls, India is building a necklace of diamonds, a series of naval access points from Oman to Indonesia. The stakes are total. To sustain this rise, India must create 10 million jobs every year. Every trade deal and every jet engine is a brick in the wall of domestic stability. India's problem is not choosing between the East and the West. It is the risk that the space for a third power is disappearing. The global order is reordering itself into a new, rigid bipolarity. This leaves no room for brokers, no room for multi-alignment. New Delhi is betting everything that its market size and its geography make it the exception to the rules of history. But geography is ruthless. China is not a distant threat across an ocean. It is a neighbor with a long memory. The trade deals and refined oil are designed to buy time. But time is a finite resource. The balance holds for now. But when the rope breaks, there is no safety net. And by the time India has to choose, it might realize the choice was already made for them.